Thank you, UNU-WIDER, for inviting me. So I'm going to go between Leila and Roxanne. I'm going to talk about the perspectives of IFFs, the estimates and challenges of even the theories, the data, and how people see it. This is a project work with the Graduate Institute at Geneva, and I'm summarizing most of these works that has been done and what we are continuing to do policy-wise. So we all know about IFFs. I'm not going to talk so much about IFFs in details. We know it is the illegal movement of money or capital across borders. Although others are also saying it shouldn't only be across borders, but money used in the country of origin as well should be also defined as IFFs. But UNCTAD insists on this. It has to move across borders to be called IFFs. Okay. We have types. We have the misinvoicing, mispricing, tax avoidance or evasion, and so on. So why does it matter to, why does IFF matter in Ghana? And it's for lost revenues and weak development financing. When Leila was talking about Angola and the rest, I'm like, oh God, this is Ghana you are talking about. It's so similar. So the objective here is to look at the nature and scale of the extractive sector, although we'd extend it to cocoa, which is also our main resource. We compare the vulnerabilities of IFFs in these resource, commodity resources of this country. Then we also identify governance and policy challenges. We'd look at the peculiar system we have in Ghana with regards to resource governance. That includes the political elites, traditional leaders or chiefs, and regulatory institutions. So I'll go into a bit of that in a moment, and I think that is where our main problem also comes from personally. We would also identify strategies to mitigate IFFs. I'm not going to talk much about that. I know that is all this conference was about, and many has been said, and what international partners are also saying about how we should go about getting our own resources or money, or finding ways to protect our revenues instead of relying on them. Yeah, and I have a brief documentary to show as way of disseminating some of our work. So we have these types of risks, types and risks of IFFs. We have, I've already mentioned some of these: corruption, trade mispricing, tax avoidance, illegal market smuggling, and resource governance, as I've already said. So this is a typical process we go through in estimating our IFFs. First, we go through the political economy, and you find all information on this at the project website, Curbing IFFs, at the Geneva Graduate Institute of Geneva website. So we went through various stages, identify where the risks are at each stage of production to export. So that is good. When we look at oil, you'd see that there's very little. We export all our oil and import the oil we use in the country. Although we are producing oil, we don't use the ones we've produced. That will be exported, then we import the ones we would use, which is sometimes put a stress on our exchange rate. So in the oil sector, we see that the exploration brings in high risks because we don't have the expertise. They are bringing in the capital, they are bringing in the human resources, and we are being, the companies take capital. We tax them after they've deducted all their costs, production costs, which can be very huge, and then we have little left for the country. And then when you speak to the regulators, they mention that they don't actually see any miscalculations in the exploration and exportation. But the problem now is how to regulate their skilled labor, how to make their costs smaller so that they will get more profits and then be able to tax those profits. That is the whole point of this, because we are not taking their money, but we are taxing their profits, the excess. Yeah. So they go about organizing their management that there's little profit to be taxed. And that is where the problem is, and where we don't have the expertise to really check and regulate. Then we have oil sale and contracts. There has been contract secrecy, negotiators, beneficiary ownership, unconventional sales methods where a person or a company will just be given the contract to work in without much discussion with experts in the country. Then we have the transfer pricing, where this involves the international oil companies. So the point here is, whenever we are trying to estimate any IFFs, we go through the political economy, every stage of the process, from production to export, and the people involved in this production to export, the regulators, the companies themselves, except for oil companies, we couldn't get access to them. But for gold, for instance, we spoke with the Chamber of Mines, which is the representative of the gold mines in the country. I'm trying to go through. So with the estimates, as Roxanne did, we did a similar thing. We use UN-COMTRADE, we use customs data from Ghana, and we try to compare. Wow, 5 minutes. We try to compare each one. So when you see the red line is the international market. The blue dots are the sales we made within the study period. And when we give boundaries, we call them arm's length pricing, we still have, at different stages of these arm's length prices, you get some underreporting or mispricing observed with the blue dots below the lowest lines. I'll quickly go through and then we can discuss when the time comes. So this, we get extra data. That is some of the challenges we have with data. We get extra data from an external private company to actually compare the exact gold content, gold and silver content of each export of these companies from Ghana to other countries, to be able to get as close as possible to the estimates of IFFs, because that has been our challenge and where people punch holes in when we are talking about IFFs. Some say it's a delayed reporting, some say we are making it up. So we try as much as possible with the methods to get close to the IFF. So with this, we, based on the metal focus and the more detailed gold silver demarcation, we show at least 82% pure gold, and you still see the arrows down that they are still underreporting or mispricing. So based on our estimates, we found that 11% of our gold doré were underreported of the total export, and 1% cocoa beans, 7.2% cocoa paste, and oil, we could not estimate oil. That is why I have the question mark there. And why is that so? This is so because we realize that each commodity has its own characteristics that makes it difficult or easier to estimate. And you have to take all these into consideration. With the oil, we were totally rubbish that the estimates are wrong and it could be exposed to legal process. So we should just leave that one out. Let me quick. So in digest, these are how we observe the risks of IFFs in our commodity sector, and these are the main ones. I brought in cocoa beans and paste to compare with the extractive, and you realize that for gold, at every point, there are risks of IFFs. Cocoa beans, which is also main export, we realize that it is the lack of appropriate expertise and potential corruption. Otherwise, the others are okay. And why is this so? Because cocoa beans export is highly regulated by the government. So in this case, that is why we are seeing that currently the new government is proposing or has established a gold board, which would work similar to cocoa board. But this would not be as easy as cocoa board because it's easier to take out gold than cocoa beans. So we have perverse incentives, which has already been talked about, the incentives we give, how it's getting back to us. We don't understand why extraction of gold, we should incentivize people to come and extract our gold or oil at a very minimal percentage. So, and then our resource governance that I talked about, the interaction between the political elite chiefs, traditional authorities, and the youth is quite a problem in Ghana. We don't know, although we are a republic country, most people would also listen to their chiefs and traditional leaders or clan leaders. So who do we follow now? And most lands belongs to the chiefs anyway. So if the chiefs go ahead and gives a go-ahead to someone to extract gold, who would know till somebody blows it up? And the youth may be gaining, so they may not talk about it or be whistleblowers to the government. And for all you know, some of them are also part of the deal. So all this leads to weak revenue, to lead to revenue leakages and reduces public investment. We lose trust in institutions, and it will limit Ghana's long-term benefit. So I'll move on to the last one in order to make way for my video, and we can talk more about others later. So we have a major challenge in Ghana's extractive sector to do with IFFs. And we see that mining is more vulnerable to trade misinvoicing, underreporting, and smuggling, with weak regulatory oversight and informal scale mining. Oil sector is more to profit shifting, base erosion, and tax avoidance, but we have a stronger Revenue Management Act and oversight. As long as we get the money, we are able to manage it, and we have a very good regulatory over the money we get. But the point is, what are we getting? Are we getting enough to be able to manage it? So Ghana risks missing out on vital resource revenues without stronger governance and institutions, better data, and political commitment. Due to time, I've been running over. I've not been really consistent with this, so I'll just leave you with.
Our world is going through troubling times as wars tear through nations. Economies across the globe, including those of the super-rich, are taking a hit. Inflation is soaring, and the spending power of the citizenry continues to shrink. All happening at a time, many nations are still reeling under the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Ghana is one of the most expensive countries to live in. Prices of goods and services have increased sharply.
IMF's most recent economic forecast about sub-Saharan Africa mostly doesn't look very good.
New inflation numbers this week, a smaller than expected increase for consumer prices.
But the situation may even be worse for some resource-rich developing countries, as illicit financial flows rob many of much-needed tax revenues.
Estimations vary, of course, a lot, but One talks between kind of $250 and $500 billion a year.
And the impact is dire.
We still don't see the money. So the question is, so where is the money going?
In this assignment, more than a dozen researchers from Ghana, Laos, and Switzerland embark on a novel investigation to measure the exact amount of monies lost to the nations through illicit financial flows.
80 to 85% of illicit financial flows were the result of legal trade exchanges, but which were improperly evaluated.
The more these resources are siphoned out illicitly or illegally, it means that we are decelerating the pace of our development.
Given a perspective on why so many resource-rich countries are poor, while others in the first world rake in billions of dollars through international commodity trade.
It is also because of the transparency of the commodity trading system that they do not benefit.
But what do the representatives of these firms say?
I cannot answer for each company because each company is developing a project.
And at the heart of the discussion are the interests of the political elite and their parties.
You have to make regulations for your country, not we in Switzerland.
While the controversy over what the risk factors are, there is a semblance of agreement on solutions.
You can, of course, use the famous blockchain technology once you are sure that you have the right information on the origin of gold, and through smart containers. Alternatively, a UN negotiation platform would give every country the same vote to negotiate.
And while this research continues, the team of academics is engaged in an extensive campaign to influence and change policy for a better world.